The U.S. the U.S. Senate is set to hold a vote in just a few hours on whether to advance major opposition on the Iran nuclear deal. If the resolution is blocked as expected, it would mark a huge victory for President Barack Obama. But while the agreement will likely stand, almost half of all Americans disapprove of it. I-24 News correspondent Charles Bybelezer takes a look at global public opinion.
The Iran nuclear deal generated a fierce partisan battle on Capitol Hill. But Congress is supposed to be an extension of the American people. And according to recent surveys, their opinions may be going overlooked. A new Pew poll released Tuesday showed that 49% of the U.S. public disapproves of the agreement, with only 21% supporting it and the rest offering no opinion. The survey found that 78% of Republicans oppose the deal. But even among Democrats, backing for the accord has dropped from 50% in July to 42% currently. The best indicators, though, may be independence, as partisanship is removed from the equation. 47% of them disapprove of the deal, with support having fallen from 31% to 20% over the past 2 months. Critics argue that the devil is in the agreement's details, as the across-the-board drop in American public support has coincided with the gradual disclosure of its more controversial aspects.
Under this agreement, Iran is permitted to be able to enrich to a level that will take them extremely close to breakout.
Elsewhere, opinions differ greatly. In Iran, whose population will most immediately be affected, 57% of respondents backed a deal which limited Tehran's nuclear development for a number of years in return for the lifting of economic sanctions. A separate YouGov poll from August showed even greater acceptance by Europeans. 68% of Germans expressed support for the deal. Likewise, 61% of Britons. 59% of the French public said they back the accord. On the flip side is Israel, where approximately 70% opposes the nuclear deal. One survey found that nearly 80% of respondents believe the agreement will accelerate and not halt Iran's development of an atomic weapon. Nearly half of all Israelis support independent military action against Tehran. Opinion polls from Gulf Arab states, whose leaders have expressed reservations about the deal, are largely unavailable. And those conducted in more closed societies such as Russia and China are of dubious veracity. But one thing is for certain. The Iran nuclear deal has evoked strong reactions across the globe, spanning political and emotional spectrums.
And with me right now here in the city is correspondent Charles Bybelezer. Good evening.
Hi, Lucy.
So it seems that the Americans are not supporting this deal, although Barack Obama is trying to convince everyone that it is a very, very good deal and a very secure one.
Initially, there was some support for it, majority support in fact, but progressively, as more details and more time has passed, those numbers of support have gone way down. And the numbers that are cited in the Pew poll are basically supported by 2 other polls that were recently conducted as well.
Which we're seeing?
Yes, there was a CNN ORC survey that found that a full 56% of Americans want Congress to kill the deal, and there was a HuffPost YouGov poll that found that only 26% of Americans wanted their senators to vote in support for the deal.
How come this deal is, the support, let's say, in this deal is deteriorating all this, like?
Critics will say that increasingly, as people got to know a lot more about the deal, and the devils are in the details, as I said in the piece, they've become less and less impressed and less convinced that it will actually achieve the aim of stopping Tehran from achieving nuclear bombs.
I'm saying this, maybe Benjamin Netanyahu was able to convince actually the Americans that this is a really bad deal.
Well, he's cited a number of times that the majority of the American public is on side with Israel's position, and this has enabled him to a degree, to continue the campaign against the deal. Again, reinforcing this particular fact, it's interesting to note that opposition to the accord rises to almost 2/3 amongst people who say they know a lot or even a little bit about the deal.
If we will look at the European side, in Europe, they're all pro this deal.
It's interesting because the Europeans back the deal by a clear-cut majorities.
And they were the first to go to Tehran.
Yes, absolutely. Paradoxically, however, that no European country that was surveyed said, a majority of them said that they believe that it will stop Iran from achieving a nuclear weapon, and only 26% of Britons, for example, felt confident that it would. So there's a paradox there, and when answering that question, they fall much more closely in line with the American public.
So nobody actually believes that this will work at the end of the day. These are not good news before we're going to vacation.
They're certainly not good numbers, and before we go on vacation as well. A lot to think about, Lucy.
A lot of things to think about. Yeah, thank you very much, Charles, for giving me a lot to think about in the next few days. Yes.